little bit of leather and a little bit of lace. My oh my mother had a pretty face. My mother was a goddess. She was a pagan. My dad, he was from the stars. He left his face a calling card on the planet Mars.
Robert, I'm Zenbock.
Hello, Zenbock.
Hi, here we are at Icon. And although you've been here for a few years, I don't get out of the dealer's room downstairs.
Well,
the huckster's room.
there's a lot to see down there, but you get out every now and then, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know, but we finally got out. We closed up the booth, we escaped.
Good.
And here we are. And so I'm sitting down with you by the food area, no less, where the heart of the convention is, where the people come in. You can check out the sights of Icon here.
Yep.
And at the same time, I noticed that you have very colorful graphics.
That's right.
So what are you, what do you do, and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I'm an artist. I do a whole wide variety of things, but right here I'm doing illustration work. Basically, I take commissions from individual persons and do drawings for them. Like, it might be a portrait of a real-life person. It might be like a role-playing game character sketch. It might be a fictional character or some fusion of those things. And it's funny you should ask. When I first started doing this, which was about 15 years ago, the vast majority of my commissions were men having drawings of their role-playing game characters done, like Dungeons & Dragons characters. But now, the vast majority of my commissions are women having drawings of themselves done. And I'm kind of okay with that.
What's interesting is my son is now about 18,
Yeah.
and he has a character, Cinderblaze.
Ah,
And
Cinderblaze. It's a good name.
Cinderblaze, yes. And he also has that on World of Warcraft.
Sure.
So it's running around animated.
Right.
And besides the TV show, with his TV show image is Tibock, he paints the little the figurines they sell for the games.
The lead figures, the
Yeah,
miniatures.
Warhammer and all that.
Sure.
You know, but if I had him here, I'm sure he would love a commission on that for what you're doing.
Well,
So I could see the transition of being able to take a talent and take someone's personality and character personality and combine them into something, so they have the persona of what's in that game that's in the mind.
It's a lot of fun. It's actually it's a strange intimacy to somebody, because they basically have to tell you kind of their favorite fantasies, you know, what they would want to see, either as a version of themselves or their characters or what have you. So you learn things about them you wouldn't ordinarily learn. It's kind of nice. Although it's funny, a lot of artists, at the risk of sounding self-congratulatory, a lot of artists have tried to do this, but they usually stop within a year or so, because you have to be able to subordinate your artistic instincts for what your client wants every single day, and a lot of artists have a real hard time doing that. I have a lot of other projects that keep me creatively satisfied, so I don't really mind. But
you ever split the project, the one that they want and one that you were inspired, that you did from the inspiration of it?
Well, actually, I have like a little worksheet they can fill out to describe what they want, and one of the boxes that they can check is artist choice, buyer beware.
Right.
Which basically means whatever they don't tell me, I will invent to my own whimsy, you know.
But I'm saying, as far as a repertoire or a book of original art, you could get your inspirations from someone's character, and you might see them differently. I don't know if they ever walk away and you want to draw them differently.
Sometimes, to be candid, this is my full-time gig. This is how I make my living. So I don't have a lot of time to do. Most of the work that I do is stuff that I've been commissioned to do. So, well, I certainly have had a lot of inspiration like that, and I am actually working towards an anthology book of my stuff. Not as much as I'd like.
Okay.
Certainly, the instinct has been there.
Right.
Not as much as I would have
All
liked.
right. So down the line, not only do you have a large work, do you keep a copy of what you give them?
Yep. The usual arrangement is that the original artwork, whatever I produce, is the client's. However, I have the option to reserve, prints, digital versions of them, so I can resell them as prints. I can use them to promote myself on the website and in books and things. So I keep a record of everything. Things that I think will have good resale value, general appeal, I'll put in the portfolios.
So I take it the computer and scanning is a real important part here.
Very important part. Well, I mean, scanning and printing technology has come along so far in the last few years. It's so much cheaper and so much nicer and so much higher quality.
Yeah.
That, I'm doing all my own prints now. I've got my own equipment, and I'll keep, like I said, a digital file of every single piece.
We went to self-editing, so we went to all computerized editing.
There you go.
You know, I had to jump camp, though, from the Windows people to the Mac people.
It's easier.
Well, that's the point, is the graphics on the Mac seem to be more on a... I'm not putting down the other side, but a professional side.
You're among friends. I'm a huge Mac fan.
Yeah, but it happens that the Mac people are making money, and the other people are working on programs that crashed. I mean, I'm telling you as it is.
I tell you, I just recently bought a new. I don't know if it's like a Mac ad or anything, but I just bought a new one of those MacBook Pros, the Intel based, and it runs Windows, it runs Mac OS at the same time.
Right, new chips.
And I've had it for maybe 5 months and it hasn't crashed yet. It doesn't happen.
Well, that was always the Mac concern, was when you mix platforms. And the only reason I'm bringing up computers is because computers and graphics and artists, and now artists can draw and retain their art, where years back you could try and do a photograph and maybe it came out, maybe it didn't. But now it's like 1, 2, 3, you got it.
Absolutely.
And you always, and particularly in New York, you own that art. Even if you give it to someone, your artist rights are protected.
Yeah, indeed. I share the rights with my clients. I make it very clear that if they want to take the image and do a T-shirt or a mug or something, I have no problem with that. But I retain certain rights. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the technology empowers artists to do things we couldn't have done before. And certainly the web enables us to reach an audience faster, easier, and cheaper than we ever could have before.
Now, you already have an advantage over the zine artists.
Do I?
Absolutely. You know what that is?
Talent?
Well, yeah, it could be.
I'm kidding.
Actually, where I'm going with this is that you're not limited by money to black and white.
Right.
That's a big advantage.
Yeah, and you can do mass publishing in color, but yeah, it costs more.
But as I was saying, the zine artists started off with self-publications, and because of the technology of that, they're back to black and white, the majority of them.
Yeah. A lot of folks are doing like web comics where color is the same cost as black and white.
Yeah.
So they'll do the original work in color and they'll publish them relatively and free to the web.
Yeah.
And they'll get daily subscribers and daily ad hits. And then when the time comes to publish a book compilation, they have to make that choice. Do I spring for the color? Or do I do it in black and white? Will it sell? And yeah, it's just one of those trials and tribulations all artists face.
But I'm already very apparent to me that your use of color is a big selling point.
I think so.
You know, it's very, very vivid color, very flowing, and eye-grabbing.
Thanks,
you know, and the eye-popping is the big thing.
Well, that's right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I've been doing digital color, again, using the computer for a while now. It has this marvelous feature called undo.
Yes.
Very helpful.
Yes, undo I like.
Yeah, but I recently purchased one of those graphics tablets where you can use a pen and you can draw and the mouse moves around.
Right.
It senses pressure and things. And it was night and day. I mean, I colored using a mouse, but being able to use the pencil and the hand technique I've trained for my entire life with the computer during color, the work is so much better than it was. I'm very, very pleased with it.
Yeah. So, and like I said, I didn't do this as a commercial for the computers,
Sure.
but it give you the tools, and that's a big part of getting the promotion out of what you're doing.
I definitely think it has empowered all artists to be able to... We have more career options now than we used to. We used to be saddled with publishers. Now we can self-publish. We used to have real distribution problems, have real problem getting our art out there. Now we have eBay auctions, we have websites, we have MySpace. It's much, much easier.
Yeah.
Now the downside of that is it's a denser environment. There are more artists out there. Many of them are high school kids, no real training, and there's a lot of flotsam out there that you have to kind of pick through. But as long as you try, eventually the fans will find you, the customers will find you, and you can make a living.
No. I appreciate your time.
You bet.
Live on Zenbock's Forte at Icon 26. Zenbock has managed to get into a corner at Icon. This is Icon 26. And I've had a pretty serious day. And now I need to escape reality, get into a little fantasy. And I like to do that by reading comics. So that puts me here. Hi, I'm
Hello.
Zenbock, and you are?
Ian Alley Seals.
Eon. We are sitting here in your booth,
Yep.
and I see a comic book in front of me.
There is a comic book there.
So, and we've met before.
Yep.
So tell me what's going on today.
Sure thing. Well, we're pushing the first issue of our new series, Shadow Tracers, which is a paranormal detective story. It's a, if you want, I can tell you what it's about.
Sure, tell me.
All right. Shadow Tracers is about 4 teenagers that are working on a high school project, and they fall into the schemes of a super criminal syndicate. And they end up getting supernatural abilities, and so they spend half their days running away from and fighting super criminals, and the other half trying to get their homework done. You know, we tackle the age-old question of how do you solve crimes when you don't have a driver's license? You know, which is something that I know we can all relate to.
Right. I have a son with that situation right now.
I know.
All right, and the time period of this is now.
It is exactly now. It takes place in Hartford, Connecticut, which is where we're from. And David Robles here is the artist of Shadow Tracers, and he went to great pains to make every location in the book photo accurate. If there's any, except the book begins in Peru, and that's not photo accurate, but after that, everything in Hartford, every panel in this book, you can go to that location and you can see it exactly, which doesn't necessarily help people in Stony Brook, New York, or San Diego or Manhattan, but it helps us keep the just keep the setting.
All right, so you got
completely
landmarks
accurate.
and real settings. So when your comic book takes off, people are going to make pilgrimage.
That's what we would hope.
All right, I hope you've got a local deli or a restaurant in there.
We do. We have some good stuff.
No, that sounds good. So I'd like to interrupt David over here. All right, I see you sketching away.
Yep.
And so what are you working on?
Right now I'm working on a Green Lantern sketch for somebody. One of the things that we like to do at the conventions is have people come in, and a lot of times they fancy themselves as superheroes, or a lot of us, like you say, like to escape into these different worlds, and sometimes people like to have themselves sketched in. So here I have a gentleman who wanted to have himself drawn in as Green Lantern. So, you know, I'm throwing the old Hal Jordan suit in here, and I'm throwing him on top of that.
All right, so if Zenbock wanted to become Superman, you could do it.
I could do that, yeah.
Change my whole physique and all, huh?
I could do that too. A lot of people prefer that one.
I need that in real life.
Don't we all?
All right, which one of the two you comes up with the ideas of the storyline?
Well, I am the writer, and so that's my main job. But we are very collaborative. So whenever I have an idea, whenever I come up with an outline for the story, David and I always sit down together and go over it, because he's the one that's going to end up executing this. And so while I get the credit, I'm on the title. It is a collaborative effort, and nothing gets written on the page until we all agree on it.
I would do anything to be in the situation where you two are together in whatever state of doing brainstorming for it. That must be a process.
It is and sometimes it's fun, sometimes tempers do flare.
Yeah.
Like, you know, where David will have an idea and I'm just not feeling it, and you have to be diplomatic, but sometimes just diplomacy fails,
Well,
and
yeah,
we
you
get
may
into
have
it
a
little bit.
perception of a character. Your perception might be entirely different from how he sees it and feels
Absolutely. And all of the characters in the book, even though I'm the writer, I didn't come up with all of these characters. For instance, you have right here the character of Nightfall, and we have a statue of him, and we have a banner behind it. That character was completely created by David, so he has a lot of input on what happens with that. So if I write something, write an interaction where Nightfall, or his real name is Ben Ramos, is having with some of the other characters, and David's not feeling it, I'm the writer, but he knows that character better than I do. So he'll talk to me, and while I have the final say on what happens in the book, I'm always going to listen to what he has to say, because that was his character. Whereas the main villain in the book, Hector Cortez, was completely created by me, and so David always follows my lead when I write a scene for Cortez.
All right, now, where do people buy your comic?
Well, right now we're promoting it just at conventions, but we're submitting to Diamond very soon. Hopefully we'll be able to find it at any comic book store across America.
All right, let me talk to you for a second. In the event that someone comes up with a comic, the first thing you do is you do basically a self-production.
Absolutely.
All right. Then after you get to self-production, you look for a distributor.
Absolutely.
All right, and at the distributors, you have a limited amount of people that would pick it up.
Absolutely, and it's also about advertising that. Just because you have a distributor doesn't mean that any stores are going to pick it up. So it's always the publisher's responsibility to get the name of your product out there, and that's what we're doing this our tour across the country right now, from Connecticut to Stony Brook to San Diego to Pittsburgh. We're trying to just get our name out there as much as we can before we hit the stands.
If I wanted to look you guys up, it's an internet world. Or anybody can find you on there?
Absolutely. We have a website. It's www.rareearthcomics.com. And we're there, and all of our information is there.
All right, this sounds really good. And then you also mentioned the convention circuit.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, we know in New York City they have a Big Apple Con.
And we're always there.
You're always, it's where I met you a while ago.
Yep.
And then going across the country, I take it it's a similar venue of comic conventions and fantasy. And,
Absolutely.
And have you drifted to any of the horror conventions yet?
We haven't yet, and that's something we've really considered.
Yeah, okay, because there's a Chilla Theater in Jersey, which is very big.
I've heard of that show, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very big show. So, all right, well, I guess we got a bit on this, and your work looks really good.
Thank you.
You know, one day I'll have to give you a Zenbock to do.
Absolutely, that'd be fun.
All righty. So, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up. Zenbock on Zenbock's Forte. And, hey, we're here. I am Zenbock, and if you don't know that by now, you're going to know nothing. All right, I want to talk about something, and this is to the parents that have kids. And parents, if you like your kids to read, get education, learn how to negotiate, learn the skills of life, and they're not maybe doing that, or they seem to be doing that, I have a great idea for you. Gaming stores. And some gaming stores, they want you in, they want your money and you're out. Some gaming stores are out there to give your kids a direction that'll change their life. They might become the next president, the next doctor. Who knows? Anyway, Gil.
Yes.
I want to talk to you about the Brothers Grimm, which is a gaming and collectibles store.
Correct.
Correct. And you're new to this business?
Actually, no. I've been involved. I've owned a gaming store since 1985, on and off. Either owned or run stores since 1985.
All right. Now, my take on this gaming store is going to be very different than my son, who's a gamer. All right. But I see a lot of kids that don't like to read. I see a lot of kids where spelling and reading and understanding. But when they get into gaming, they got to know rules. They get into more gaming, they need to learn how the other guy's character works, because it could be a different character, a different race, a different planet, whatever the game is. And so each of these characters and whatever has different rules and different books. Mm-hmm. And these kids are motivated to read.
Correct.
So if they come to your gaming store, would you have any books for them?
Maybe a couple.
Yeah, that's behind me.
As you see.
All right. Again, my take on this is very different, because I have personally seen a lot of kids that were poor readers, and the gaming taught them skills. Now, the negotiating skills. When we play a game in your gaming store and they get in a car, or they go to another convention, or they go on vacation, or they go to Europe, they want to play a game. Some of these games are like international.
Actually, most of these games are worldwide. As a matter of fact, a lot of these games come from around the country. Around the world, rather.
So now, this gaming store might have a house rule that's different than another one. Correct. Or a private group. So these kids have to know how to negotiate a fair play on this.
Right.
Right? So now, in the terms of politics, they learn how to put a spin on things. So you're teaching them to be spin doctors.
A little bit.
But this is a very good skill, because this is negotiation with give and take. All right? So there's socialization, social skills with learning to be in a gaming store.
The interaction between players and between even different groups, very, very good.
All right. See, I'm coming at this from a very different point of view because I want the parents to do the deed of going into the store and checking it out. And if the kids are motivated, the kids can learn to have space on their own. Now, if your kid's 12 years or 13 and younger, you should be there with them. Maybe you're into gaming. The kids get to 13, 14, and 15. They like to feel a little independent. So if you can leave them somewhere without worrying about them getting in trouble, they might be playing with other gamers. And here's a cool thing. Gamers are not an age. It's a mindset. All right? So we don't have an age factor if they're a gamer.
Actually, we have on our flyer, it actually says we have toys and games for people 3 to 103. And we really do. You know, I mean, it's amazing.
If they can breathe and move,
then they can find something in the
to
store.
do. All right. All right. So what I'm really trying to say is that there's something here going on besides a game. And games can be a board game, card game?
Correct. Role-playing games.
Right. What kind of card games?
Magic, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and again, that ranges all age brackets and things like that. The new game is Pirates. This game Pirates. It's a card that you break apart and build little ships out of. You know, and it's kind of a, you know, gives you manual dexterity and you get to play.
And then we have computer games.
Correct.
Where they go on a server and interact either in the store or at home with people that are necessarily anywhere on the planet.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Right.
We do a lot of
Leaves me out.
a lot of the games go, you know, you don't know who you're connecting with. So it could be, you know, someone in France who's really into the same game you are, and you're getting a chance to interact with somebody and create friendships outside of the game with people around the world.
Right. So there are games like Worlds of Warcraft, and there's a few others.
Correct. World of Warcraft currently has about 8.5 million players.
Wow.
So it's the population of New York City.
It's the MySpace of gaming.
Basically.
All right. Now I'm going to move over to my left, your right. And I'm over here with an old friend of mine, Larry. How goes?
Good.
So, you're involved with gaming too.
Yes.
What's with the gaming?
It teaches you a lot of very useful skills, as you was touching on earlier. It teaches you how to negotiate. It teaches you how to understand an economy. Because if you've just gone out and cleaned out a monster's treasure trove, you then bring all this stuff back to town. You have 10 pack mules worth of stuff. How do you transfer that into coins? How much do you pay for it? Who are you going to sell it to? How are you going to negotiate with the various merchants you're going to be selling it to? If you want to get a particular item, you have to have all the pieces to make the item. It teaches you how to think outside the box and how to solve problems that...
Life skills.
Yeah, exactly. Problems you wouldn't otherwise have a means of solving.
So we could teach a person, instead of just one rule, how to adapt to many rules, many cultures, many religions, many concepts. You know, I mean, on this planet, all you have is people of flesh to deal with. Maybe a different color, but they're still got 5 fingers on each hand. Where I come from, I have to deal with Romulans and Klingons and Borg. I mean, predators and species and creatures you don't even want to know about. But in the gaming world, you've got all kinds of crazy things. Orcs?
Orcs, goblins, elves, gnolls, hundreds of different races. All of them have their own psychology, and you have to understand how they think, or how the person that's running the game thinks they think.
Right. And then there was this old D&D and Dungeon... Am I got this Dungeon Master?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons and the Dungeon... What do they call it?
Dungeon Master. That's the person that runs the game. Whatever your game system calls it, that's basically the person telling the story. A role-playing game is really just like reading a story out of a book, and there's a plot, and that's what the game master came up with. And then the players are the characters in the story, and what they do with the background the game master gives them is what actually happens in the story.
Now, all the stuff I'm getting about, let's see if we guys get together. We're going to try and get a 3-shot here. This is tough, you know, but what I'm trying to get at now is all the stuff we're talking about can be found under one roof. All right. And for the particular people that are in the New York area that travel to Long Island, and this isn't a commercial, this is a matter of exposing you to a whole world. One of the new environments, new stores, is located, what town are you guys in?
Selden, New York.
Selden, New York. Now that's sort of like a central of Long Island, actually.
Correct.
You know, like almost if you put a pin from tip to tip. All right. And you guys will be open from what about roughly your hours?
We generally open about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're open till midnight.
All right, so they're about 2 to midnight, so the kids get out of school. And of course, you guys with your kids, you're not going to keep them there to midnight. Maybe on a Saturday night you might, because you probably find a lot of kids in there.
Yeah, we're pretty packed.
And I bet you within the store's walking distance, a kid could even probably pick up a slice of pizza and sit and eat.
Actually, we sell food and soda in the store, all prepackaged stuff. You throw, microwave and snack on. And there's also a pizza place really close by.
The point of it is that the kids have a chance to have a good place to get out of the house, but somewhat supervised and somewhat responsible, a phone call away. And it's a nice outing. It's really important for the kids to start to have that independence and to have a place where you know that they're not totally alone. And it keeps them off the streets and out of trouble. And gamers, by the way, I notice a lot of them have a lot of miniatures and models and things they built and painted and developed art forms and painting, so they're not likely to be reckless because of the artwork and time.
They're putting a lot of time and effort in what they do, so yeah, they want to keep it safe.
Yeah, so there's a lot of art forms, a lot going on. All right, I've said everything about gaming, and I really wanted to cover this because as a father to Tibock, I watched him learn to paint, I watched him become very social, and then I met a lot of nice friends of his, and then I learned about these gaming stores. And every area seems to have one or two, but we're lucky that on Long Island we have this new store coming up. And so, if you want to check us out, they're there. This is Zenbock, and we're at Icon 26, and that's it for today, and enjoy it.
I'm Tibock, and I am with
Little Slugger.
Little Slugger. You sound like you slug people.
That's what this is for.
Ah, nice baseball bat. Look like you gave someone the hurting.
With this baby, yeah.
Okay. So what do you do often with on your free time?
On my free time. Usually, I wait for someone whose heart turns to darkness.
Okay. Darkness.
That's
How can you
when-
tell when their heart turns to darkness? You actually just see it and go,
No.
his heart looks like darkness.
No, it's their paranoia.
The paranoid. Okay.
That which makes their mind dark.
Dark. Okay.
Turns them dark.
Sounds interesting. So, all right. I take it your weapon of choice is a baseball bat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And now, why did you have a baseball bat? Why not, a sword, an axe, a gun?
Brutal.
Brutal.
Baseball bats are brutal.
You like brutality, I take it. That
Yeah.
You look like you just broke someone's freaking jaw with that thing.
Let's say their skull.
Okay. And do you have a profession?
No.
No. Okay. Do you have anything you do besides beat the crap out of people in your free time?
Sit in the darkness. Just to find when they come.
Dude, no offense. I think you need a girlfriend.
Me too.
Yeah. I understand you're on a one-man crusade. That's totally cool.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, even the dark nights always need love too. I always need
Sure.
love too. Hey, the ladies can tell you I'm a pretty wild guy.
Ooh. Sound like a partier to me.
Believe me, I do all types of things.
Mm.
I've been across around time in all different types of planets and places.
Mm.
You name it, I've been there and I've seen it.
Been to the sun?
A little too hot for me, but I went close to it.
Have you ever seen my world?
Is that the one with everyone running around with machine guns all the time?
No, it's the darkness.
Okay,
Pop up in there once in a while.
that one I try to avoid.
Too bad.
Well, I'm going to let you continue back to being the darkness, and I'm going to continue enjoying Icon. All right,
Go ahead and
you
do it.
go find more people to beat up on.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Bye.